On March 29th, it's my birthday. And all I want to see happen on my birthday is for Elon to be taken down. Yes.
And Maria, now you have this Congresswoman Crockett who is calling for attacks on Elon Musk on her birthday. Let's take him out on my birthday, she says. And yet she turns and says, oh, I'm not calling for violence. Well, she is an elected public official. And so she needs to tread very carefully because nothing will happen to Elon Musk.
You just heard the Attorney General of the United States tell a sitting member of Congress to tread lightly in her criticism of Elon Musk. Let that sink in. See, this is what real weaponization of the Justice Department against your political opponents looks like. Now, even though Bondi is trying to deliberately misconstrue Crockett's words to make it seem like she's inciting violence, it's pretty hard to make that argument when the Chiron literally emphasized that the movement to take down Tesla is nonviolent. But Crockett anticipated this response from Bondi, which is why she went out of her way to emphasize nonviolence in that same stream, and she explained this when she addressed Bondi's warning to her in an interview on MSNBC.
Because they are trying to twist our words, one of the things that I told people to do is make sure you are adhering to the laws in your area. Make sure you know what it looks like to protest and to be able to raise your voices and to exercise your constitutional right to free speech. And what we see is that they want to dull our free speech rights. They want to make sure that those that are participating in the press, because we saw that there have been recent attacks specifically on this news organization, they want y'all to kind of tamp down what you say and hopefully buy into the lies instead of going out there and just telling the truth. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see that Elon Musk, that his money as it relates to Tesla, well, Tesla's tanking right now. And I'm okay with that. So just in case the slow people listening decide to clip this up later, I just want to say that I have never promoted violence whatsoever. Yet I've also never made excuse for those violent actors, such as the ones on January 6th. So Pam Bondi, if you have an issue with terrorism, maybe you should talk to your boss about locking back up those guys that he let out that participated in January 6th.
And she's absolutely right. Now, the reason why she brought up terrorism is because the Trump administration is trying to treat vandals like terrorists. And during that same interview on Fox News, Pam Bondi also equated Molotov cocktails with nuclear weapons. I'm not making this up.
These are Molotov cocktails. That could be a weapon of mass destruction.
Wow is right. And Trump floated the idea of sending them to a prison in El Salvador on Truth Social, noting how these prisons have become so recently famous for such lovely conditions, which is an admission, by the way, that he intends on violating their Eighth Amendment rights. But I guess that punishment is preferable to what Harris Faulkner of Fox News recommended, which was just to give them the death penalty altogether. So the conflation of vandalism and arson with terrorism is being used to justify the harshest punishments imaginable. But we're getting way off track because it's clear that they don't even want you criticizing Elon Musk, hence why the Attorney General ominously warned a member of Congress to tread lightly, even though she knew that that was not a call for violence. And it's not the first time that this administration has gone after a member of Congress for criticizing Elon Musk too harshly in their opinion. So back in February, Democratic Representative Robert Garcia got a letter from the Justice Department warning him that they took his comments about Elon Musk on CNN as a threat. Now, he said, what the American public wants is for us, Democrats, to bring actual weapons to this bar fight. And because he said that, the DOJ demanded a response clarifying whether or not he was literally encouraging Democrats to fight Elon Musk with actual weapons. And I can assure you that the Justice Department knows that Robert Garcia wasn't actually recommending that Democrats literally get weapons and physically fight Elon Musk. They know what is and isn't sarcastic. They understand context. They can detect when someone is or isn't using a metaphor or an analogy or an idiom, but they're being purposefully obtuse and they're playing dumb because they just want to go after their political opponents, so that way they're afraid to criticize Elon Musk and Donald Trump. The goal is to have a chilling effect on free speech, and that's the exact point that Jasmine Crockett made in that same interview on MSNBC.
She's attempting to get me to say, oh, I'm going to be scared and I'm just not going to say anything, because they are willing to literally break the law. I mean, that's what we've seen them do. They are ignoring court orders. They are ignoring what our own laws are. When we look at things such as impoundment, things like that, this entire administration is rogue. And this isn't about partisanship. I keep trying to tell people that we are living in the time of good versus evil, right versus wrong. And right now, when we are looking at the black letter of the law and they are deciding, I'm just going to ignore it, then they are wrong. That is clear as day. And right now, they are going after anyone who decides that they will challenge them, whether it's the judges that are sitting on the benches, whether it is lawyers that have decided that they were going to represent their clients to the best of their ability, and most of them won against Trump and his administration. Basically, they are trying to get rid of all voices of dissent.
And once again, she's right. It's why Donald Trump suggested that CNN and MSNBC's criticisms of him were illegal, even though their criticisms of him are protected by the First Amendment. It's why he signed a decree letting the Department of Homeland Security sanction lawyers that sued the United States government when they break their own laws or for violating the Constitution. It's why he sued media outlets like CBS and ABC News for defamation and illegally shut down outlets like The Voice of America, which his administration is being sued for. And I'm assuming that based on that former decree we learned about, the attorneys representing VOA reporters could be sanctioned for even attempting to sue the government for this. And the overall press freedom ranking in America has dropped significantly due to Trump's war on the press. And part of the reason for that decline is attributed to things that I mentioned earlier, as well as his decision to ban AP from the Oval Office, the Pentagon replacing traditional news outlets with conservative ones, and investigations into traditional media outlets by members of Congress, as well as the FCC for supposed bias or DEI programs that they may have had. And none of this is surprising, by the way. In fact, in his first term, Trump talked about opening up libel laws back then so he can go after his critics in media who were mean to him. Now, in particular, there's a Supreme Court case from 1964, New York Times v. Sullivan, which raised the standard for defamation claims made against news outlets, but the right has been wanting that precedent overturned for a very long time, so that way Trump can do things like this. But the good news, as the New Republic reports, is that a right-wing billionaire's attempt to get that struck down by the Supreme Court was just rejected, since they chose to not grant cert to him. Now, the bad news is that that's not going to stop Republicans from filing slap suits against individual critics, which have the same chilling effect on free speech, albeit on a much smaller scale. In fact, Elon Musk, the world's richest man, implied that he's going to be filing a defamation lawsuit against a former member of Congress, Jamal Bowman, because of this comment that he made on CNN.
He's incompetent, he's a thief, he's a Nazi, and people don't trust him.
That's defamation, according to Elon Musk. But I wonder why anybody would think that he's a Nazi in the first place. I mean, it's not like he's given us any reason to think that he's a Nazi. It's not like he's made any gestures to signal his support for Nazism. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Why would anybody think he's a Nazi? But on a serious note, this is a long-term tactic that wealthy people like Elon Musk have been using against people who criticize them for a very long time. It's essentially a threat of financial ruin, because even though they're not going to win these defamation suits, since it's not defamation, it still costs money to defend yourself from these kinds of suits in court, as frivolous as they may be. And it's become such a common phenomenon that states have introduced laws to protect people from these kinds of slap suits, since they have a chilling effect on free speech, because it's obvious rich people just don't want people to criticize them. So if they threaten them with these kinds of lawsuits, well, then they might shut up. So to stop that from happening, to allow people to speak freely and not be afraid that they're going to be punished with a slap suit, states have had to protect citizens from these kinds of slap suits. Thankfully, in my state of Oregon, we have protections that are great for slap suits like this. But irrespective of the legality or illegality of these kinds of attacks that they're lobbing at people, I think it's pretty obvious that the goal is to scare people everyone into shutting up. And even though mainstream media has been the main target since they have the biggest reach, well, I've got bad news for the rest of us in independent media, because the Electronic Frontier Foundation has learned through FOIA requests that the Trump administration may be going after independent media soon too, by rewriting Section 230, which is largely credited as the law that created the internet. And for those who don't know, what Section 230 does is it protects companies like YouTube and TikTok from being sued for the content that users post to their platforms. But if Section 230 were to be rewritten or overturned altogether, then websites like YouTube, for example, could be sued for videos that people uploaded. Section 230 shields them from liability for what other people post. But if that's gone, what do you think is going to happen? What will the effect be on these platforms? There's going to be mass censorship. They'd likely police content more than they ever have, which will affect everyone, because they want to make sure that nobody posts something that's going to get them a lawsuit. A lot of these websites would just shut down because they wouldn't be able to deal with all of these frivolous suits. The government would take advantage of this. Rich people like Elon Musk would take advantage of this and sue people in independent media for criticizing him. I mean, it would basically decimate free speech on the internet, but it's all worth it so long as Donald Trump and Elon Musk can silence their critics. And make no mistake about it, that is what this is about. His administration is also trying to weaponize the immigration system to do just that. For example, a French researcher was detained upon his arrival to the US and subsequently deported because he was subjected to a phone search where DHS agents found texts of him criticizing Donald Trump's cuts to scientific research, oh no, which were deemed, quote, hatred of Trump that could be described as terrorism. Now, as CNN reports, DHS says that he wasn't deported for his political beliefs, but I call bullshit on that claim, since the Trump administration is currently trying to get current legal residents to hand over their social media information for quote-unquote vetting, which doesn't make any sense, because they've already been vetted, hence why they're green card holders in the first place. So the only reason why you'd plausibly want this information in the first place, obviously, is to see what political beliefs they have. If they have pro-Trump beliefs, maybe they get to stay. If they have anti-Trump memes on their phone, maybe they shouldn't. And electronic searches are becoming increasingly common at airports of foreign nationals and even permanent residents, specifically because they are seemingly trying to filter out people who might come into the country that are critical of Donald Trump and his politics. For example, this guy is one of many TikTokers who said that his phone was searched, and this is something that has never happened to him before. So it's being assumed that everyone is a criminal until proven otherwise. And these kinds of electronic searches have been pretty uncommon, although they've kind of increased over the years. And based on anecdotes that we're getting now, it seems like they're happening much more frequently. Now, in case you're wondering whether or not this is legal, since it seems like a pretty brazen violation of the Fourth Amendment, the answer is yes, in specific circumstances. As The Verge explains, the Supreme Court ruled in 2014 that warrantless searches of people's cell phones violated the Fourth Amendment. But there's one exception to that rule: searches that happen at the border. The courts have held that border searches are reasonable simply because they occur at the border, meaning in most cases, CBP and Border Patrol don't need a warrant to look through travelers' belongings, including their phones. That exception applies far beyond the U.S.'s literal borders, since airports are considered border zones too. So yeah, if they see you on the streets and ask to search your phone, you can request a warrant. But if you're at an airport coming into the country, however, they don't need a warrant thanks to this 2014 Supreme Court decision, which makes an exception to the Fourth Amendment, which is not a good idea in my opinion, but nonetheless, that's our Supreme Court. It's not too surprising. So, I mean, if they subject you to an electronic search and they see that you have TikTok on your phone or you sent anti-Trump text messages, well, look out, because they may use that as a justification to detain you if you're not a citizen. And it's not unreasonable to speculate that they are specifically going after people who criticize Trump and looking for that, because they've chosen to detain Mahmoud Khalil because he has pro-Palestinian views that they disagree with. But some cases aren't going to be as clear-cut as Mahmoud's. For example, there's Llewellyn Dixon. This is a 64-year-old lab technician in Hawaii. She's a green card holder, and she's been in the country for 50 years, yet she was recently detained at an airport on the way back from a trip that she took to the Philippines. Now, as Newsweek explains, Dixon's lawyer, Benjamin Osorio, told Newsweek in an email on Sunday that she has a single conviction from 2001 that has triggered the issue. Osorio said Dixon has a nonviolent conviction for embezzlement, for which she received 30 days in a halfway house and a $6,400 fine. She was never ordered to serve any active time in jail or prison. It was the travel that triggered the issue, and if she had not traveled, she would not be removable from the United States. Now, it is true that the government can revoke your green card if you committed a crime, even if it's nonviolent, but this was committed 24 years ago, and they've never seemingly had a problem with it. She's had her green card renewed multiple times, but since Trump is cracking down on all immigration, it's possible that this wasn't politically motivated aside from generalized bigotry. In fact, Trump is revoking the status of more than 500,000 legal immigrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela as well. So, they said that they were against illegal immigration because they want you to do it the right way, but yet when you do it the right way, they penalize you and revoke your status as well. So, the point is, this might just fall under generalized xenophobia as opposed to them targeting a critic. With that being said, do they have a reason to target somebody like Dixon? The answer is yes, they do. Because she works for a state lawmaker in Hawaii who's been a very vocal critic of the Trump administration, specifically of their immigration policies. In fact, the person she works for authored a bill to provide legal representation to immigrants in Hawaii, according to Hawaii News Now. So she works for somebody who's fighting the Trump administration. So make of that what you will. At the end of the day, it is clear that permanent residents are broadly having their First Amendment rights violated. And also, this administration has targeted individual lawmakers simply for criticizing Elon Musk while they're simultaneously waging a war against the free press. The goal here is to make you afraid to criticize them. But understand that we all have the constitutional right to criticize both Donald Trump and Elon Musk and anybody else in government for that matter, regardless of our citizenship status. So they might try to make a few examples out of lawmakers here and there or immigrants, but understand that they're only going to be able to destroy the First Amendment if we let them destroy the First Amendment. So don't let their attack on free speech intimidate you. You have the right to peacefully protest and criticize Donald Trump and Elon Musk and anyone else that you want to. And the fact that they're trying so hard to silence their critics demonstrates the power of speech. They wouldn't be trying to take away your right to criticize them if it wasn't working. So don't be afraid to express yourself because it's not only protected by the U.S. Constitution, it's your right as a human being.
Do yourself a favor and click the join button on YouTube to become a member. Because Mike's doing a great job. Getting to watch his videos before everyone else is tremendous. Many people are saying this. Join today, folks. You won't regret it.